Hi guys, it's Night Fear, and I have come on a little bit late to do my Books in the Freezer Readathon wrap up. I only read 2 books and started 2 more, and had since finished the other one of the ones that I started. So I will let you know what books I finished, and go ahead and wrap up the one that I didn't finish during the readathon, but that I finished after, so that you can get an idea about that too. So I'll just go ahead and do all of that. The first book that I finished was The Cabin at the End of the World, and that was by Paul Tremblay, or Tremblay, however you pronounce it. I do not have my tablet right now because our internet is down, and it's actually the internet for the whole town, because we have it through our electric company, so it's down. So actually, I don't know why I moved this, so I'll put that there so you can look at it. So I don't have because I read that on my Kindle. But this book is about a young girl, and she goes on a vacation with her 2 dads to this cabin out in the woods. And I think she's either 7 or 8. I can't remember. I think she's 8. But anyway, so this man shows up, and she's in the front of the cabin. She's chasing grasshoppers, and this man shows up, and her dads are in the backyard. And so he tells her that she needs to tell her dads that they need to let them in, and that they're not as scary as what they look like, and that they need to let them in because they need to help save the end, to save the world so that the world doesn't end, basically. This book started out great premise. I was really enjoying it. There's a lot of very weird, creepy moments. There's a lot of horror moments. And then towards the end of the book, there's a lot of questions that don't get answered. There's a lot of things that are mentioned throughout the book that are never really... It's just like they're mentioned and that's it. They're never really, nothing ever happens with the things that are mentioned. And it just, I was so frustrated by the end of the book. If I had the physical book, I probably would have thrown it. And I actually gave this book a 2. And I mean, I very rarely give books 2s. Usually if I don't care for them, I give them a 3, but this one is definitely a 2. And the only reason I didn't give it a 1 was because like I said, I did like the beginning of the book. I know that there are a lot of people that like this book, but I did not. And this met the challenge of horror by or featuring a person of color or someone on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. So yeah, and that was the very first book I read. I started out because I was so excited to read it, and I read it either the very beginning of the readathon, the very first day, or it was the first and into the second. So yeah, I was very disappointed. So the second book that I started, and I do have the physical copy, was Nosferatu by Joe Hill. This book was awesome, and as you can see, it's really thick. And so this one took me, and I was listening to this one on Audible, or not Audible, but audiobook through Scribd. Wasn't it? Yeah, through Scribd. And I loved it. I mean, it just was, it was so good. This is about this girl, what is her name again? Victoria, Vic. We start out with her as a little girl. Sorry about the glare. Well, we start out with her as a little girl, and she, gets this bike and this bicycle. I can't remember the name of the bicycle, but anyway, her dad buys it for her, and she's able to cross this bridge and find things. And I'm not going to go into more detail than that because you need to read the book. But then at the same time, we're also introduced to this man, of course I'm going to forget, Charles Manx. And Charles Manx kidnaps kids, and he takes them to Christmas Land. And that's a whole other, I mean, Oh, it's so good. There's a lot of language in this. There's not really sex in this, but there's sexual mentioning of sexual things. So if you don't like those things, then you need to skip parts in this book. But I wouldn't skip out on the whole book. But it's just, it was so good. And Charlie Manx has such a dry sense of humor about things and the way that their stories connect, because we do follow her a little bit, and we follow her as she loses her power, or she thinks she's crazy, that she never did those things, and we see her into her adulthood. I think she's in her 30s when the book ends, and we see how she thinks she's crazy, but we're not. We're like, as a bystander of us reading about this, we're like, no, you're not really crazy. It did happen, and it's just, it was such a good book. And this is the second book that I've read by him, and I did not get to read The Fireman. I had to take it back because, like, this one is 692. So it's almost 700 pages. And The Fireman is just as big. So it took me a long time to read this, and so I didn't get to that one. But I am going to read that one, because I did start it. I think I got to like page 30 or page 40, something like that. And it was good. I just had to take it back to the library. So, but this one I gave a 5 out of 5, didn't I? Yes. and like I said, it's really good, and I'm gonna read more of his books. But I would highly recommend this. I just would not recommend this one for a readathon, because I'm stupid and like to do big books, and yeah, that didn't work out too well. So, now the 2 books that I started You, and I have not finished that one yet, and that one's by Carolyn Kipnis. I am kind of liking it. It's a little weird because you're actually you're in the mind of the stalker, and so you get kind of a weird sense about things, and it's a very weird book. And like I said, I didn't get that one finished. I think I'm almost halfway through, and I will be finishing that one eventually. But I just didn't get it done at all. So for this wrap up. The other book I read that I started, I got halfway done, and then the readathon ended. But I have finished it since then. That was Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. I forgot. I'm sorry. The Nosferatu by Joe Hill was the book recommended on the podcast. That was the challenge that worked for. You was supposed to be the horror book with the movie. Of course, like I said, I didn't finish that one, so that one didn't count. And this one was going to be for the horror short story collection. And like I said, I got to pick shorter books, because this one is almost 500, or right at 500. Yeah, we don't include notes. So it's 505. So, so for those people that are doing that crazy challenge where you run around and have to get books off your bookshelf, if you own Skeleton Crew, this might be one for that, between 500 and 510 pages, if you have this particular edition. So you might want to check that out. Anyway, loved this book. Gave it 4 out of 5. Just because, it's a short story collection. But I did, if you guys want me to, I did write down, as you can see, don't mind my doodles at the bottom, but I did write down all the stories, and I wrote down a little bit of synopsis for myself, so I could remember, and then I wrote, what star rating I would give each one of the books, and they were all 3, 4, or 5 stars. So, they were all pretty good. Of course, The Mist is my favorite. Let me remember here. Let's see. The Monkey was awesome. Mrs. Todd's Shortcut was interesting because he mentioned The Shorter Way, which was actually in Nosferatu. It's the Shorter Way Bridge. So I wonder if that's where Joe Hill got the idea, or if it's just kind of coincidence. I really would love to know that. If anybody knows, if any interviews have been done where that was mentioned, let me know. The Raft was really cool. I remembered that one. Some of these I didn't remember because I've read this book before. But The Raft was one story that I had remembered once I started reading it. Let's see. What other ones were really good? I only rated the Morning Deliveries, The Milkman 1 and 2. Those two stories I only rated 4s, but they were pretty good too. And then The Reach was pretty good too. But it's interesting in his world to see where the stories were from and trying to figure out, because which one was it? Trying to remember. There was one. Oh, it's called Nona, and he mentioned Ace Merrill, which is actually he's in The Body, and he was mentioned also in Needful Things. So it's interesting to remember, because I was reading the story and I was like, hey, wait a minute, I know that character's name. And then I remembered, hey, he was in Needful Things. And then I was thinking he was the bad guy in It, or not the bad guy, but you know, the bully in It. And then I looked it up and no, it wasn't It, it was The Body, which I had read that, because that's in, is that one in different seasons, I think? I think that one is in different seasons. And I've read that story before, but I couldn't remember. So that's why I wrote down the stuff. So, but yeah, I definitely would recommend this, and I'm just sad I couldn't finish this, for the readathon, but I mean, 2 out of 5, I guess, is okay. And, you know, and I got to read some good horror and got to read Nosferatu, which, like I said, was awesome. I'm just so excited that I have another Stephen King-esque book author to read, because he is a lot like his dad, but he doesn't, the descriptions aren't as vivid to me, because that's one of the things I've always liked about Stephen King, is I could, like when I was reading It as a teenager, I put it down for a while, because I mean, it's 1,000 pages, and I had read a few other things, and I picked it right back up and knew exactly where I was, because his worlds always, you know, pretty much stick with me. And like I said, when I was reading some of these, like The Raft, I started reading it and I totally remembered pretty much exactly what had happened. And so it's cool like that. I like how, you know, his writing really sticks with me. Now his, I think, will, but just not as much as his dad's. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go. I have a couple more videos to make. And since my internet is down, I have to do this on my phone, through my phone internet, and I don't know how long that's going to take. So, and I have at least 3 videos more that I have to make. Yeah, go procrastinator. I was hoping that the internet would come back up, and yesterday we were at the hospital with Christopher most of the day because he's got a gigantic bump on his jaw, and it's a salivatory stone. And it's crazy, but anyway, so if you guys happen to see Christopher in any of the videos and you notice his face is swollen, that's why. Anyway, please remember to be kind to one another, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!